Eubanks, Andrea Yates and more mothers who destroy their families in a minute.
Number 10. China Arnold. In 2005, China Arnold of Dayton, Ohio, stuffed her 3-week-old daughter into a microwave oven and burned her to death after arguing with her boyfriend about the child's biological father.
Number 9. Mary Beth Tinning. Mary Beth Tinning's case is most similar to that of Utah's Megan Huntsman in that she is apparently a serial killer, that is, she allegedly snuffed her children in a series of events scattered over years, rather than killing them all in one shot. She oversaw the deaths of 9 of her children, one of whom was adopted, during a 14-year stretch ending in 1985. She confessed to smothering 3 of them but was convicted of only 1 murder and is currently serving a life sentence.
Number 8. Kenesha Berry. She killed her baby and 5 years later she tried to kill another. In 1998, at only 20 years of age, Kenesha Berry committed one of the cruelest crimes of the past few decades. On November 29, 1998, she placed duct tape across the body and mouth of her 4-day-old son, placed him in a black plastic trash bag, and left his body in a trash dumpster, resulting in his death. The child, named by concerned neighbors as Baby Hope, was not identified until 5 years later after another newborn child, Paris, was found abandoned in a ditch during the hot month of June in 2003. The child was covered in hundreds of fire ant bites, which resulted in her being hospitalized for almost a month due to seizures brought on by the bites. In February of 2004, Berry was convicted and sentenced to death for murdering her baby, a decision that was later overturned to a sentence of life imprisonment.
Number 7. Deborah Jean Milk. She took her 4-year-old son to the mall to see Santa Claus, after she had ordered his death. Technically, Deborah Jean Milk didn't kill her son, but she was still charged with first-degree murder and accused of conspiring with 2 acquaintances to kill her son Christopher in 1989. According to court records and media accounts, Milk found the child to be an inconvenience and asked James Stiers, her roommate, to kill him. She dressed the child in his favorite clothes and cowboy boots and told him that he was going to the Metro Center Mall to see Santa Claus. According to court records, another man, Roger Scott, drove Christopher and Stiers to a pizzeria, and then to the desert near 99th Avenue and Happy Valley Road in Peoria, where Stiers shot the boy 3 times in the back of the head. Both men blamed the shooting on the other. Deborah Jean Milk has already spent 22 years on death row, and after her guilty verdict was thrown out earlier this year, a judge demanded that she face a retrial.
Number 6. Diane Downs. She shot her 3 children, killing one, in order to make herself available for the man she loved. Diane Downs was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in 1984. In the spring of 1983, Diane Downs shot her 3 children, with the intention to kill them all. To make her story of an attempted carjacking more realistic, she went as far as shooting herself in the arm. However, witnesses saw Downs' car as she drove the children to the hospital in an attempt to save them. She was so desperate for help that she drove a mere 5 miles per hour. Her calm demeanor at the hospital raised red flags, and it all came to a head when one of her surviving children, unable to speak after suffering a stroke, expressed fear and an increased heart rate when Downs came to visit her. Forensic evidence didn't support Diane's story, either. She was arrested 9 months after the shooting. She confessed later that her children got in the way of her love, since her boyfriend didn't want to share her with them.
Number 5. Leanne Smith. She murdered her 2 kids because of her pedophile man. Leanne Smith, a British woman, admitted to having suffocated Rebecca, 5, and 11-month-old Danielle on May 17, 2010 in the Miramar Hotel in Spain after her long-term partner Martin Smith was arrested on child sex offenses. She was found guilty of their abominable murders after the jury rejected calls to acquit her on grounds of insanity. What makes her case even worse is that she probably knew that her boyfriend was a pedophile during their relationship, but she didn't mind at all. So, when the charges were raised against her boyfriend, Leanne became obsessed with the idea that her children would be taken into care by UK social services because of the incident. So instead she decided to just murder them. Her older 21-year-old son, Chris Smith, claimed that he would never forgive his mother for what she did. "I wish I could have been there as justice was done. She looks so cold in the pictures. I wish I had been there to stare into her eyes as the word guilty was announced to see if there was even a flicker of emotion. It is impossible to forgive her."
Number 4. Andrea Yates, she confessed to drowning her 5 children because she heard voices. In June of 2001, Andrea Yates shocked the world after systematically murdering her children, aged between 6 months and 7 years, at her suburban home. It has been 12 years since Andrea Yates was first convicted of drowning each of her 5 children in the bathtub in a Houston suburb. There were endless debates about whether Yates was pure evil or just ill. Her own version has been a combination of both since her first trial in 2002, where Yates' lawyers claimed she believed that the devil was inside her, and that by killing her children she would save them from hell. Since then, her murder conviction has been overturned. She has been found not guilty by a reason of insanity on retrial, and she was placed in a state psychiatric hospital.
Number 3. Frances Newton, she murdered her whole family and blamed it on gangsters. In Texas, Frances Newton was executed at the age of 40 by lethal injection for the April 7, 1987 murder of her husband, Adrian, her 7-year-old son, Alton, and her 21-month-old daughter, Farah. She was only 21 when she murdered them. However, Frances never admitted her guilt. She consistently proclaimed her innocence, contending that her family was killed by drug dealers to whom her husband owed money. Frances was trapped to the death chamber gurney, with her parents among the people watching. The governor rejected Frances Newton's petition for a 30-day stay at 5:50 p.m. She declined to make a final statement, quietly saying, "No," and shaking her head when the warden asked if she would like to. Number 2. Shaquan Yulee. A disturbingly common MO for mothers who kill their kids is to drive them into a body of water until they drown. The case was slightly different in 2010, when Shaquan Yulee of South Carolina suffocated her 2 sons, 18 months and 2 years old, with her bare hands in a motel room before strapping them into car seats and rolling them into a river.
Number 1. Susan Eubanks, she murdered her 4 sons only to get revenge against her ex-husband. On the evening of October 26, 1997, Susan Eubanks committed the unthinkable when she shot and killed her 4 children execution-style at her home in California. Brandon, Austin, Brigham, and Matthew were 14, 7, 6, and 4 at the time of their deaths. She then turned the gun on herself, shooting herself in the stomach. 5 days after the murders, Susan was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. During her trial there were allegations of child abuse and talk of revenge against her ex-husband prior to the murders. After being convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder, Susan Eubanks was sentenced to the death penalty. At her sentencing a month later, she said that she loved her children but felt they would be better off dead. She said she killed her boys as a final act of love in an attempted murder-suicide. At the sentencing, she said the factors that influenced her actions included alcoholic parents, depression, and poor mental health treatment. The judge, however, decided that Eubanks' basic reason and motivation was her deep hatred against her ex-husband. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Top 10 Real Facts of the World.